Have you ever stood in the middle of a desert and felt the silence roar, where the wind moves like an ancient voice and the horizon hides more secrets than the stars ever told? That's where our story begins, in the heart of Arabia, centuries before the rise of empires and monuments carved by kings. A land where no river ran, and yet an empire of water was born. They were called the Nabataeans, a name whispered in the corridors of history, half remembered, half erased. Nomads, traders, architects, engineers, and ghosts. Because though they built cities from stone, they left behind almost no written history. Their words are gone, their libraries turned to dust, but their creations, they still defy the desert. Imagine it, a civilization that could make water flow where rain refused to fall. Who were these people? How did they turn emptiness into abundance? And why, after centuries of brilliance, did they simply vanish? To understand the Nabataeans, you must first understand their enemy, the desert itself. This was no gentle landscape. The sun here was merciless, the soil dry as bone. To most, this was a place to pass through, not a place to live. But to a certain group of Arab nomads, this barren land was opportunity disguised as punishment. No one knows exactly where the Nabataeans came from. Some say they emerged from the Arabian Peninsula, traders who drifted north with their camels following the scent of spice and gold. Others believe they were a lost tribe, remnants of forgotten kingdoms swept away by the tides of time. But whatever their origin, one thing was clear. They were survivors. In a world ruled by rivers, Egypt by the Nile, Mesopotamia by the Tigris and Euphrates, the Nabataeans carved out a kingdom with none. Their only resource was ingenuity. They learned to listen to the desert, to feel its rhythm, to read its silence. They discovered that life didn't need to fight nature, it needed to cooperate with it. At first, they were wanderers, traders on camel caravans, ferrying frankincense, myrrh, silk, and spices between Arabia and the Mediterranean. Their route stretched from Yemen to Damascus, across sands that swallowed armies and dreams alike. But the Nabataeans thrived where others perished. Why? Because they had mastered something most never understood: the art of hidden water. They knew where to dig. They built secret cisterns buried deep under the dunes, invisible to invaders but known to every merchant of their tribe. And when they began to settle, they chose a place the world would one day call Petra, a fortress of rock, hidden behind narrow canyons that seemed to guard the entrance to eternity. Petra wasn't built overnight. It was born, slowly, patiently, from the marriage of human will and natural design. To reach it, travelers had to pass through a passage called the Seek, a slit in the sandstone that wound for over a kilometer through cliffs rising hundreds of feet. Imagine walking through it 2,000 years ago, the air cool and echoing, the walls burning red and gold in the morning sun. And then, suddenly, the canyon widens, and you see it. The treasury, Al-Kesni, carved directly into the rock, its columns in figures glowing like fire frozen in time. But that was just the beginning. Beneath the beauty, there was function. Every carved facade, every step, every channel had purpose. Because Petra wasn't just a city, it was a machine built to control water. You see, in the desert, power isn't measured in armies or gold. It's measured in drops. The Nabataeans understood this better than anyone. They built an invisible web of pipes, channels, and reservoirs that could catch every drop of rain that fell on the surrounding mountains. When floods rushed down the valleys, as they rarely did, the Nabataeans were ready. They guided the torrents into carved cisterns, filtering sand and silt with precision that modern engineers still admire. They created a hydraulic empire in one of the driest places on Earth. But this was more than technology. It was philosophy. The Nabataeans didn't conquer nature. They harmonized with it. Their architecture followed the flow of the land. Their walls danced with the direction of the wind. Even their tombs were carved to face the sunrise, as if they knew their eternity depended on light. Archaeologists still debate how they managed it all. How could a people with no written history design systems that lasted centuries? The answer might lie in their unity, in a collective knowledge passed through generations by memory, not paper. Every stonecutter knew his role, every trader his route, every child his tribe's secret wells. Their city was built not just from stone, but from shared purpose. As their control of the trade routes grew, so did their wealth. Caravans from Arabia and India, loaded with scents, silk, and spices, stopped at Petra to rest and resupply. The Nabataeans taxed every traveler, every merchant, every shipment. Gold flowed through their gates like rivers they never had. And soon, the desert city glittered with prosperity. Frescoes, sculptures, gardens, even theaters carved into cliffs. But wealth breeds envy, and while the Nabataeans built silently, the world beyond began to notice. Egypt, Greece, Rome, all wanted a share of the desert's gold. They called Petra a mirage of riches. But the Nabataeans didn't fear outsiders. They hid their treasures in plain sight, in the maze of canyons that only they could navigate. Their kings ruled with wisdom and mystery. The most famous among them, Aratus IV, turned Petra into a capital of elegance and diplomacy. Under his reign, art flourished, and Nabataean culture reached its peak. He blended the styles of the Greeks and Romans with their own traditions, creating something neither foreign nor native, but timeless. And yet, even in their greatness, the Nabataeans remained elusive. They left no monuments of conquest, no grand inscriptions boasting of power, only silence. As if they knew that the more noise a kingdom makes, the faster the desert forgets it. The desert, after all, is patient. It watches, it remembers, it waits. And while the Nabataeans built their paradise of sand and stone, a shadow was already growing beyond the horizon. An empire that saw their brilliance not as beauty, but as wealth waiting to be claimed. Rome. But that storm belongs to another day. For now, imagine standing once again before the treasury at sunset, the light spilling across the sandstone, turning it to molten gold, the desert wind whispering through the seek, like a voice from another world. A civilization born without rivers, and yet they made the desert bloom. How? That is the mystery we'll unravel next, because this is only the beginning of the story of the lost engineers of the desert, the Nabataeans, the people who defied the impossible.